couple of salmon. Woo! Salmon run! We fishes! We trying to go breeding. Blah, 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 blah.
So, Salmon Run is a deck building game. What isn't a deck building game these days? However, there is a bit of an interesting twist on the deck building genre with this game. You are a salmon who's ready to burst with some babies. And you've got to get all the way to the top of the river from to the spawning pool.
Not only do you need to get to the top of the spawning pool, you need to get there before everybody else.
Yes. Because if you're the only fish in the spawning pool at the end of the game, you win.
Yeah.
If you're not the only fish in the spawning pool at the end of the game,
it depends on how tired you are.
Yes.
And the less tired you are, the better off you are.
And you will win if you are less tired.
Well, everyone is dealt the same cards. So there's like a swim forward, there's like swim left, swim right. You're going to use like those cards to figure out how to move your salmon on the board.
Yeah. The board is made up of a bunch of modular tiles, which represent the river, and they're double-sided, and some tiles are easier or harder to navigate than others. You're going to lay out a specific number of these sandwiched on the other end with the start and finish tiles. Don't make a fish sandwich joke there. I know, I see it in your eye. I know you're going to.
I'm holding.
So once you've got the board set up, your fish start on one end. You populate the river with bears, which are hungry, very hungry. And each tile, you're going to move your fish using your cards up the river, hex by hex, possibly landing on special hexes that will grant you new cards to your deck from a series of different piles that are next to the board until you have a winner.
So your hand is always going to be 4 cards, and then on your turn you can play up to 3 cards from your hand. So say you want to play like a swim forward and a swim left, and be done. That's fine. And then you just discard those cards, you draw back up to 4, and then it goes to the next other player. But if maybe you're in a hurry, maybe your salmon like really wants to get there, you can play 3 movement cards, but then if you do that, you're going to actually have to take a fatigue card. And a fatigue card is kind of like it just kind of like mucks up your hand. Like it's you're going to put that into your discard pile, and then eventually you'll be drawing that and bringing that into your hand.
Yeah, fatigue cards have no use other than to just like clog up your deck. And you can on your turn, if you play 3 fatigue cards in a row, call one of them from your deck and return it to the pile, so that's one way to get rid of them. But you're going to constantly be battling the influx of fatigue into your deck through the various turns that you're going to take and how fast you want to swim. So you can do a slow and steady up the river, but there are going to be some obstacles that you have to overcome, most notably waterfalls, in which you have to combine 2 swim cards in order to jump over. You can't swim through waterfalls, and that's going to earn you a fatigue when you jump.
Yeah, just the action of jumping is going to get you a fatigue, and then if anyone plays a bear card that moves a bear meeple onto the space with your salmon, then you also get a fatigue card from that.
Gotta dodge those bears.
So you can so you will have some control over it in some sense, but then there are also board elements and other cards that other people will play that will affect you.
And the other part of the strategy is planning your route to the top of the river by swimming over the key spots that upgrade your deck. So you've got spots that will let you add more swim cards to your deck. They will add upgraded swim cards that let you move twice when you play them. You can cull cards from your deck if you go to like reed areas, which are usually off to the side of the river. So it's a really nice sort of like integration of geography into the mechanics of deck building, and it's actually fairly novel. You'll oftentimes get into situations where maybe you're up against a rock and you don't have like the right cards to get around the rock.
Sometimes it can feel like your salmon is very dumb because you really need him to turn left, and you haven't drawn a turn left in ages, and your salmon is just smacking himself up against a rock, and you're like, salmon, come on now. Makes for some pretty funny game nights.
Yeah, and it obviously conveys the idea that fish can be really dumb. Despite all the instinct, I know I need to get to the top, but I can't.
I just can't turn left.
He's like Zoolander.
I was just gonna say that, except I think he does turn. No, he doesn't turn left. Or can he turn right?
I think he can't turn. I can't.
Can't
it's
remember.
been a long time since I've seen the movie.
Someone's gonna correct us on this.
Yeah. So I know where you're gonna start when we talk about what we like about this game, and I'm just gonna let you go with it.
2 words, people. Bear meeples.
Bear meeple. So when you decided that you wanted to get this game, I was so excited because the game comes with like little fish tokens, but it also comes with meeples in the shapes of bears, and they're just like the best.
Yeah, it's pretty satisfying when you like land and put a little bear, and you're like, I'm gonna move the bear to this space, and it like
give you fatigue.
It's pretty great.
And what's also really fun is the fact that the bears have no terrain restrictions about where they can move. They're like these invincible juggernauts that just serve to make you tired.
I'm hungry.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's really fun.
Yeah, it is a ridiculous theme. I think it's one that maybe people would like pick up in the game store and be like, haha, look at this game. But it actually has like a lot of depth to it, and I think it's very scalable too, especially with all the different boards you can get. They have like a hard side and easy side, and so you can kind of like mix and match. There's really like an endless like possibility, there's really endless possibilities for you to play this.
Yeah, because you can also customize how long you want the game to be, and like you said, how difficult you want to make the run. Simplicity is a big thing. If anyone has ever played a deck building game ever, they'll be up and running in like a minute or so once you explain all the board elements. And if they haven't, the mechanics are really like straightforward for the most part. The art is really charming. It's just got really pleasant art to look at. The game is nice to look at. The color blue they use on the cover and in the river tiles is really nice. And I really like the hex design of the river. It's a really good implementation of hexes to like convey movement in this game.
And I also, the first time I played this game was with a big group. You can play 2 to 4 players, and we played with 4 players. And then we actually started playing a 2-player, and I was kind of worried that it wouldn't translate very well, but I found that it was still very close. It wasn't like one person got out to a huge lead or anything like that, so it was still pretty close.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is probably because everyone's on an even playing field. So like you said, you all start with the same deck of cards, and the cards you earn they're usually only applicable to you. Yeah. So you're kind of in control of your future based on what cards you put into your deck. So it's really hard to screw someone over in a way that makes it unwinnable.
Right.
Like, yes, you can move the bears, and yes, you can play cards like the current card, which moves someone back down the river or whatnot. But though the current card affects everyone, including yourself, and the bear, yes, it will give fatigue, but I would say at least once a game, someone's going to get a bear attack, so it all kind of evens out in the end.
Yeah.
Sort of like bear karma.
Bear karma.
So there's not really a giant like FU button you can press to like really screw someone out of winning.
No.
And that's I think why the game ends up being so close at the end, because you start with an even playing field, and it's really like how best you can tactically use your hand of 4 cards each turn.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree. So
it's a really smart I just want to continue. It's a really smart design. It takes the best parts of deck building, which is this idea that as you play the game, you're building this organism, which is your deck, that kind of lives and grows how you want it to, and then implementing that growth to make it even better. And that's fun. But what I really like what this game does is it adds a geographic element to that mechanic. It's not the core mechanic of the game, like let's say Dominion, and it's not abstract. Like, your fish is that deck. That deck like is the fish that you're moving, and the token just kind of represents its position in the river. And so I like the fact that you need to think about where you're going rather than sort of some abstract concept of victory points.
Right.
And I like that the geographic element is what really drives the game, and the deck building mechanics are just sort of like the input that you give to those mechanics. And I think that's a really great way to take a really overdone and popular gameplay mechanism, which is deck building, and breathe some new life into it. Because when I play this game, I don't think, oh, I'm playing a deck building game. I think, oh, I'm playing a racing game that just happens to have deck building in it. Kind of the same way that Mage Knight has deck building in it, but that is like an RPG adventure, and I never feel like I'm playing a deck building game.
True. I would agree with all those points. Also, it's kind of nice. So it's not like an Ascension where there's like a certain cost of a hero or a certain level of a monster that you have to defeat that comes up as you go through the game. Like with Salmon Run, you set up the entire board, and so I have seen in a couple of games that I've played where you think about, okay, well, the spawning point that I have to get to is over a waterfall, so I'm gonna have to combine like 2 like direction cards at some point. So maybe you stock up on like double forward or like move forwards when you can get more, or maybe you in the 4-player game it might be more important to call your hand of fatigue cards by going to like the read spaces and stuff. So I feel like there's a lot of depth to it, whereas like a lot of, I think, deck building games, like you start out playing very simply, but it can get a little unwieldy.
and repetitive.
Yeah.
And in this game, I think one of the things that, as an extension of what you're getting at, is that there's a lot of times when you have a choice. I can go the long way around and get some benefit for doing so, or I can try and shoot straight to the end and like hopefully manage the crisis that is my handful of fatigue cards as best as possible.
Right.
So that's fun.
Right.
You're not always totally hosed.
Yeah. I think the main thing we're trying to get across here is that if you've ever seen Salmon Run in your local game store and you've thought it was just a joke, like seriously actually consider picking it up and maybe like trying it at the store, because it's a lot more fun than you would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't let its simplicity, I mean, the theme is inherently ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so when you're all sitting around a table, like really rooting for your fish to get to the end, it's a good time. It is a good time.
Right, yeah. Or when someone picks up that bear and you don't quite know he's like a hex away from like a few different fish, you're like, just don't eat my fish. Like it can get pretty fun.
My favorite move with the bear is to, when I play the bear card, is to move a bear way further upriver to what I know is going to be a choke point later in the game, because then people have to sort of like approach the bear with a plan in mind, because he's standing there guarding the pass, as it were.
Agreed.
The other thing that I like, and I forgot to mention, is that going along with this idea that you can control sort of the chaos that's happening, if someone plays a card that you don't like, a current card or a bear card, something like that, you can actually play, if you have a copy of that card in your hand, you can play that to counteract the effects of that card for yourself. Mm-hmm. So while a current may affect everyone, you could play your own current card and not be affected by the current, which also adds a bit of interesting hand management, because your deck starts at 10 cards, so you know what's in there, and you know, like, you're not going to get probably more than 20 before the game ends, so you can kind of predict what's going to come up when, and you can kind of manage your hand in a way that will be beneficial to you, which is a big part of the game.
Yeah. So we have a lot of glowing things to say about it. Do you have any like negative?
And I think this is a big one. Well, before we get to that, one final thing. Mm-hmm. Insert is great.
Oh, yeah. Fits everything perfectly.
Yeah, with room.
With room. Very easy to set up, too, and quick to play. Also, highly recommend this for game nights, because it's quick to play, easy to set up, and people get it pretty quickly.
Yeah. The one thing I think this game falters with, and this is like a big one, so it's kind of important, the rules are written in such a way that certain things are unclear or very ambiguous, specifically around the jumping and how much fatigue you take from that, and how you use cards to jump. It's in a couple of different places in the rulebook, and it's really annoying when you're trying to learn the game to figure that out. So I think the rulebook could have been tighter. As it is, the game is simple enough that you can, for the most part, get everything you need to right, but you will probably hit a couple of rules wrong the first time you play.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I guess my only, one of the negatives I think I have is that it's only 4 players, and I feel like a game about all these salmon like going to breed, like it'd be pretty fun if it could hold up to like maybe 6 or 8, even 8 players. I think it could be pretty interesting. And then along with that, there's a lot of times when we play where salmon end up on the same spot, and I kind of wish there was some sort of rule or like thing that happened when that happened, because I feel like that's a thematic thing, and they could make like a rule applicable to that, but maybe they tried that and it didn't work, or maybe it just would make things even more complicated than they needed to be.
I'm gonna throw out a suggestion. If multiple salmon are in the same spot, and a bear hits that spot, then instead of everyone just taking a fatigue, I think that you should roll a die for each player, and they should take a fatigue on if their roll matches like what they take, as if you're like a school of fish and the bear can only get one of you, you know? Interesting.
So. Actually, yeah, that's a cool idea.
House rule. That's a house rule. Official couple of meeple house rule right there.
All right, I like that.
But yeah, I think this game is begging for an expansion. I would love to see more players, or even just more boards or more tiles and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I know there are a couple of promo boards, I think, on Board Game Geek, which we got, and they're great. But yeah, more boards, more cards, yeah. Because I think in the 2-player game, it was pretty rare for us. Maybe it was just the boards we ended up playing, but we didn't really use the Eagle cards all that much, where you can like steal a card from someone or that kind of thing. So
yeah. Overall, I really like this game. I mean, I really think it's a great opener. It's accessible to everyone. It's got like elements of ridiculousness to it, which is always good in a group setting.
I always love those.
Yeah, so I give it 2 fish out of fish.
Yeah, I give 2 like flopping fish out of 2 flopping fish, I guess.
Yeah. Perfect score for Salmon Run.
I
The
know.
little game that could.
I know, I love it. I really hope people check it out after watching this.
And there's never a time I'm not willing to play Salmon Run.
I
I'm
know.
always willing to play
And
Salmon
I'm
Run.
so shocked because this is coming from the guy who, like, you know, worships at the altar of GMT and, like...
Listen, I am perfectly...
the coin series.
I'm perfectly capable of enjoying a wonderful game about salmon reproduction as I am a game about the Colombian drug war of the 1990s, okay? This world is so diverse and so full of things to love and experience, you
Maybe
know?
we should make, like, a bigger game of Andean Abyss, but then the side game is Salmon Run.
Yeah, I would love that. If they could make a coin series game about fish, that would be great, too.
Oh, God. You heard it here first, folks. Awesome. Thanks for watching and listening.
Yeah, and go check out Salmon Run.